1:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Romesh Piris and read by Geethanjali Ramanayaka. The headlines. The nationwide quarantine curfew is to be lifted from tomorrow amid strict interprovincial travel restrictions. Another stock of the Pfizer vaccines arrives in Sri Lanka. The daily COVID-19 recovery tally is on the rise. The 6-month roadmap for ensuring macroeconomic and financial system stability is to be unveiled by the CBSL governor tomorrow. The Ministry of Health to implement a new tax policy to reduce the use of cigarettes. The Foreign Secretary of India is scheduled to visit the island soon. The leaders of political parties to hold sittings for 5 days next week. International news: over 100 killed in Ecuador prison massacre. Sports boxing: Sri Lanka bags 2 bronze medals at the 58th World Military Boxing Championship. Local news in detail now. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday instructed officials to lift the ongoing nationwide quarantine curfew from tomorrow as health authorities noted a considerable decrease in the number of COVID-19 patients and deaths. The curfew was imposed on August 20th when the Delta variants struck across the country, infecting thousands of people and raising the death toll to beyond 12,000. As the president was informed that the situation was easing and the virus load in patients had decreased, he instructed the country to reopen from Friday, October 1st, but on strict health guidelines. The Army Commander General Shavindra Silva said the inter-provincial travel restrictions will continue to be in place despite the quarantine curfew being lifted tomorrow. The commander also mentioned that health officials would release a set of tough guidelines today, which would come into effect from tomorrow when the curfew is lifted. Meanwhile, State Minister of Transport Dilum Amunugama said, although the lockdown will be lifted tomorrow, trains will not operate for 2 weeks. The State Minister said interprovincial buses will also not operate during the next 2 weeks. However, bus services within provinces will resume as per usual after 4 a.m. tomorrow. The Ministry of Health operated over 400 COVID-19 vaccination clinics are in operation across the island today. More details on the vaccination clinics operating across the island and the type of vaccines administered can be obtained from the official website of the Health Ministry, www.health.gov.lk. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health said that another shipment of Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines provided by the COVID-19 COVAX facility arrived in Sri Lanka today. A special flight carrying the 400,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine touched down at Bandaranaike International Airport in the early hours of the day. Meantime, 61,215 COVID-19 vaccines were administered in Sri Lanka yesterday. The epidemiology unit of the Ministry of Health said a total of 11,730,305 citizens have thus far been fully vaccinated. Moreover, Sri Lanka is to begin administering the booster dose for the coronavirus using the Pfizer vaccine on a select group of people. The Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, said that the booster dose will be administered on people above the age of 60. He said the booster will also be administered on those between the ages of 30 and 60 who are suffering from chronic illnesses. The third dose will also be given to health workers and other frontline workers. The epidemiology unit of the Health Ministry said the daily total of new COVID-19 cases moved to 941 yesterday as 256 more people were tested positive for the virus. All new cases have been associated with the New Year cluster. This brings the tally of coronavirus infections confirmed in the country to 516,465. According to epidemiology unit data, 46,761 active cases are currently under medical care at hospitals, treatment centers and homes. Total recoveries from the virus infection reached 456,857 earlier today as 770 more patients were discharged from medical care upon returning to health. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka registered 61 new COVID-related fatalities confirmed by the Director General of Health Services on on September 28th. The new development pushed the official death toll to 12,847. The Minister of Health, Dr. Kelly Ramukwala, says the Ministry of Health has taken measures to introduce a new tax policy for cigarettes, and steps will be taken to submit the Cabinet memorandum to the Cabinet of Ministers as soon as possible. The Minister disclosed during a discussion with the National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol at the Ministry of Health the implementation of the new tax policy will also reduce the use of cigarettes. The chairman of the National Authority on Tobacco and Alcohol, Dr. Samadhi Rajapaksa, said the relevant draft of this tax policy has been prepared. Discussions were also focused on updating the pictorial warnings on cigarette packets. The Indian Foreign Secretary, Harsh Vardhan Sharingli, is scheduled to visit Colombo in early October as India and Sri Lanka seek to engage at high-level bilateral meetings amid a perceived strain in ties. The scheduled visit comes 10 days after External Minister S. Jaishankar and his Sri Lankan counterpart, G.L. Pires, met on the sidelines of the UNGA session in New York, while official sources in New Delhi and Colombo indicated that Shringla will likely inaugurate some key bilateral projects between October 2nd and the 5th. The visit is Shringla's first to Sri Lanka as Foreign Secretary. He has worked closely on issues pertaining to Indo-Lanka relations in his capacity as Joint Secretary in New Delhi some years ago, overseeing Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Myanmar and the Maldives. The Chief Government Whip, Johnston Fernando, says leaders of political parties representing Parliament has decided to hold sittings for 5 days next week. The Parliament sessions will be held on October 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and the 8th next week after the lockdown is lifted tomorrow. The Chief Government Whip further said that Monday, October 4th will be confined to oral questions raised by the MPs to be answered by the ministers. Meanwhile, Sergeant-at-Arms Narendra Fernando noted that the House will take up some important legislations, such as the Petroleum Resources Amendment Bill, Registration of Electors Amendment Bill, the EPF Amendment Bill next week, while a full day's debate on mid-year fiscal situation has also been lined up for the week. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The opposition leader, Sajith Premadasa, has requested the visiting delegation of the European Union not to discontinue the Generalised Scheme of Preference Plus or GSP Plus concessions granted to Sri Lanka. This was discussed during a meeting held between the opposition leader and the EU envoys recently. An EU delegation of 5 high-ranking officials arrived in Sri Lanka earlier this week to engage in discussions with the Sri Lankan authorities pertaining to the GSP Plus concessions. The GSP Plus is a special incentive arrangement for sustainable development and good governance. The EU envoys also called on the Justice Minister Ali Sabri, who briefed them of the positive developments in the country's judiciary. A total of 8 countries, including Sri Lanka, Pakistan and the Philippines, are benefiting from the current GSP Plus facility. The Disaster Management Training Centre at the SLAF Station Mullatiu conducted a basic search and rescue general training course designed and sponsored by the International Search and Rescue Advisory Group. The INSARAG is a network of disaster-prone and disaster-responding countries and organizations dedicated to urban search and rescue and operational field coordination. Its aim is to establish standards and classification for international USAR teams as well as methodology for international response coordination in the aftermath of earthquakes and collapse structure disasters. The certificate awarding ceremony of this training course was held recently using the Zoom platform with limited participation. And that ends local news.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Vidya Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vidya Mahatmya.
The Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Mr. Ajit Siniwad Cabral, will be unveiling the 6-month roadmap for ensuring macroeconomic and financial system stability tomorrow. The event will be held at the atrium of the CBSL and the proceedings will commence at 10 a.m. The 6-month roadmap is unveiled by the CBSL Governor in the backdrop of difficulties faced by businessmen and public due to the current existing restrictions on imports and non-essential goods and equipment. Furthermore, the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa yesterday instructed the Governor of the Central Bank to reduce import restrictions and provide relief to importers, businessmen and the public. Accordingly, the Governor of the CBSL is expected to present suitable proposals in this regard at the unveiling. And that was our main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vidya Mahatmya. Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
And now in Watch Live.
The validity period of driver's licenses has been extended until the 30th of September 2022. Licenses that are due to expire on a particular date within the period commencing from the 1st of April 2021 and ending on the 30th of September 2021 have been extended for 12 months from the date of such expiry. And the driver's licenses which are due to expire on a particular date within the period commencing from October 1st, 2021 and ending on 31st March 2022 will be extended for 6 months from the date of such expiry. And that came to you in Watchlight.
World News.
In the headlines, over 100 killed in Ecuador prison massacre. The North Korean leader willing to restore hotlines with South Korea. Italy's climate minister accepts Thunberg's blah 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 criticism. World news in detail now. Ecuador's President Guillermo Lasso stated that a prison massacre that erupted on Tuesday in Ecuador has killed 116 people and wounded about 80. The death toll represents a significant uptick from earlier estimates after Tuesday's bloody clashes at the Litoral Penitentiary located on the outskirts of the coastal city of Guayaquil. And in a speech televised on Wednesday, Lasso indicated the prison was not yet entirely secured and urged inmates' relatives and families to stay away from the area. Ecuadorian Prison Agency, SNAI, had earlier reported detonations and fights between criminal gangs in one of the pavilions of the prison. The North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has expressed willingness to restore communication links with South Korea from October. The ruling Workers' Party newspaper Rodong Shimon reported today that Kim had delivered a speech at the Supreme People's Assembly the previous day. Kim reportedly showed willingness to restart communication channels as part of the efforts to realize people's expectations for lasting peace on the Korean peninsula. Italy's climate minister says he accepts the criticism of Greta Thunberg, who this week accused politicians of 30 years of blah blah blah. Roberto Cingolani said Ms. Thunberg raised serious problem. We were not credible in the past. He criticized those who want renewable energy but don't want the power station in their backyard. Ms. Cingolani was speaking at climate ministers gather in Milan for the final UN talks before COP26 in Glasgow. Greta Thunberg, aged 18, mocked the words of world leaders in her speech at the Youth for Climate Conference in Milan earlier this week. Back to the headlines of the world news. Over 100 killed in Ecuador prison massacre. The North Korean leader willing to restore hotlines with South Korea. Italy's climate minister accepts Thunberg's blah 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 criticism. And that ends world news. In development news, the Minister of Highways, Johnston Fernando, said the construction work of the widened and developed four-lane road from Pamankada Sri Sambuddha Jayanti Mawatha, WA Silva Mawatha to Wellawatta, the Colombo Horana Road, is in the final stages. In a statement to the media, the minister said, with the widening and development of this section of the road and the widening and construction of the Pamankada Bridge, it will be possible for vehicles currently travelling in one way on the Pamankada Sri Sambuddha Jayanti Mawatha to travel in both directions. The minister also pointed out that this will alleviate the heavy traffic congestion in Kohuala and Pamankada. He said, this section of the road will be widened and developed, and the Pamankada Bridge will be constructed by the Road Development Authority's Southern Road Connection Project. The cost of the construction is 210 million rupees, and that was development news.
Sports news.
Boxing news. Sri Lanka has won 2 bronze medals at the 58th World Military Boxing Championship held in Moscow, Russia recently. According to Sri Lanka Army, its light flyweight pugilist Lance Corporal Nuan of Sri Lanka Armed Corps had secured the medal under 49 kg weight category. In the meantime, women's 75 kg weight category bronze medal was clinched by leading aircraft woman Gayani Kaluarachi of the Sri Lanka Air Force. She marked a historical milestone with her victory, becoming the first Sri Lankan female pugilist to make it to the podium in such a mega boxing event. And that was sports news.
A safe, easy and versatile app for all your banking needs. NSB Pay for monetary transactions, bill payments, reloads, credit card payments and Lanka QR transactions. A range of facilities with multiple account registrations. Access to your bank needs wherever you are. Download the NSB Pay app from the Play Store or the App Store for free now. For more information, call your nearest NSB branch or 0112 379 379. Conditions apply.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The Sri Lankan Airlines is among the airlines leading the way in the South Asian region by trialling the International Air Transport Association Travel Pass commencing from tomorrow with selected sectors. This marks another initiative of the Sri Lankan Airlines to create a touchless passenger journey in keeping with the airline's vision to be Asia's most customer-centric airline. The digital verification process of IATA Travel Pass will add convenience for the passengers with an improved seamless customer experience. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
A safe, easy and versatile app for all your banking needs. NSB Pay for monetary transactions, bill payments, reloads, credit card payments and Lanka QR transactions. A range of facilities with multiple account registrations. Access to your bank needs wherever you are.
In economic news, the 55th annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank will be held in Colombo next year. The Ministry of Finance said the annual meeting will be held from the 2nd to the 5th of March 2022. The memorandum of understanding in this regard was penned yesterday at the Finance Ministry. The meeting will be attended by 3,000 to 5,000 delegates of member countries, including finance ministers, central bank governors, international bank representatives, company executives and journalists. The meeting is being held under the theme Positioning a Climate-Resilient Green Economy for the Post-COVID-19 World. And that was Economic News. Weather report. The Meteorological Department forecasts the possibility of developing a low-level atmospheric disturbance to the southeast of the island. Hence, the showery condition is expected to enhance over most parts of the island during tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Furthermore, several spells of showers will occur in the western, Sabaragamuwa, central and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Matra districts. Showers or thorough showers will occur at several places elsewhere in the evening or at night. Showers may occur in the northern and eastern provinces during the morning too. Fairly heavy showers about 75 millimeters can be expected at some places in the Uva, eastern and north central provinces and in the Hambantota district. Back to the headlines of this news broadcast. The nationwide quarantine curfew is to be lifted from tomorrow amid strict interprovincial travel restrictions. Another stock of Pfizer vaccines arrives in Sri Lanka. The daily COVID-19 recovery tally is on the rise. The 6-month roadmap for ensuring macroeconomic and financial system stability is to be unveiled by the CBSL governor tomorrow. The Minister of Health to implement a new tax policy to reduce the use of cigarettes. The Foreign Secretary of India is scheduled to visit the island soon. The leaders of political parties to hold sittings for 5 days next week. In international news, over 100 killed in Ecuador prison massacre. Sports boxing, Sri Lanka bags 2 bronze medals at the 58th World Military Boxing Championship. And with that, we end this news broadcast from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.